Welcome to another edition of webinar series on MBA Rendezvous. Today we have with us current students of prestigious SIBM Bengaluru, and we are here to dwell on the topic why and how to crack GE-PI-WAT at SIBM. Indeed, post-cracking SNAP, now students have reached at their final step of selection process. Hence, it would be worthwhile and relevant for them to listen from you all on the real issues of GE-PI-WAT so that objectivity can be established. So we welcome you, Shavi, Anisha, and Dhanraj. I would request you to help us with your brief introduction, please.
Sure, ma'am. Thank you so much for having us. We are absolutely delighted to be a part of this session. Beginning with my introduction, my name is Anisha Kaul, and I'm a member of Admissions Committee of SIBM Bengaluru. I completed my Bachelor's of Business Administration a few years back, after which I worked for Royal Bank of Scotland as an operations analyst for 3 years. Currently, I'm pursuing MBA in Business Analytics. Thank you.
Hello everyone, I'm Dhanraj Varnagre. I am a member of the Admissions Committee at SIBM Bengaluru. I have done my bachelor's in chemical engineering, and after that I began my MBA journey at SIBM Bengaluru. Thank you.
Hello everyone, I'm Sharvi Vedke, a member of the Admissions Committee of SIBM Bengaluru. Speaking of my graduation, I am a mechanical engineer. It was during my graduation that I developed an inclination towards management and hence decided to pursue an MBA from SIBM Bengaluru.
Great. So for today, my next question will be, what's the nature of GE and how should one crack it? So can you please cite your own example?
Absolutely, ma'am. I would like to take up this question. So group exercise, which is often abbreviated as GE, plays a very crucial role in determining the total score of an individual, which is later used for the shortlisting of the candidates. But GE is often confused with GD, which is group discussion, which is not the case, because GE is much more than that. Now, what I mean by that is that for a GD, the students are given a topic for which they need to speak for like 8 to 10 minutes and then come to a conclusion. But this is not the case with GE. For GE, the students have to collaboratively work together and create a topic for themselves. This would be clearer if I give my own example. I remember for my group exercise, it was very unique. We were presented with a total of 8 tiles, 4 tiles in first row and 4 tiles in second row. Now, all these tiles were totally irrelevant. They did not directly have any relation with each other. Like one tile, it had some food in it, and another tile, it had a forest in it. The third tile had some fashion things related to it. So it was up to us, the entire batch, how we comprehended the entire topic and how we created a topic for ourselves. So I remember that we discussed for a couple of minutes about which of the 2 tiles would be appropriate. Some came with some tiles and other students came with some other tiles, but it was up to us how we combined our ideas and then finally came up with 2 tiles. And I remember we had selected one tile which was of a forest and another tile was of one tile was a forest and another was for fashion. And how we related both of them was that how fashion industry is exploiting our forests or animals, how it is using leather. Overall, it was about the exploitation of forests only. So this is how we comprehended it. But again, this might not be the case with all the batches, or this might not be the case every year, because exercises may vary. That is how it is. So this was about my GE experience. And moving towards the second part of the question about how one should crack it, I would personally suggest that one should be well aware about the happenings around the world. They would definitely be very helpful. I remember that during my time, there was some political crisis going on between 2 of the countries, and how we use that information in our GE, that was very helpful. So basically how it helps is that when you speak on certain grounds, it lets the evaluators know that you're not speaking out of any opinion or perception, but rather you have certain grounds to speak on. So it lays a very good impression. Another thing which would help to crack GE is that one should be very much mindful of the thing that this is a group activity and not an individual activity. So you have to be very careful how the group discussion is turning out to be as whole. And it doesn't matter if you are performing good, but if the entire group is not going in a right direction, if the discussion as whole is not turning out to be very productive, it is of no use. At the end, it would hamper your individual performance only. Secondly, one has to ensure to be polite and very much gentle. And yes, most importantly, reach a proper mutual conclusion by the end of the discussion. It should not be chaotic, at least at the end of the discussion. Just it is okay if at the beginning of the discussion everybody has different opinions, but right moving towards the end of the discussion, there has to be a mutual conclusion. So that was about my experience.
Yes. Very well said, Anisha. Thank you. Thank you for your like insightful. Uh, I think this is very beneficial for the students who are wishing to join SIBM Bangalore. Thank you so much, Anisha. So my next question would be, how do you establish leadership skills in GE?
Sure. So this is a very important question, I believe, because mostly students believe that GE is conducted just to evaluate the speaking skills or communication skills. But I would like to say that is not the case at all. Had it been the case, personal interviews would have been sufficient. There was no need of group exercises. So what they try to evaluate in group exercises is the leadership skills, the reasoning ability, or how persuasive you are. So yes, leadership skills do play a very important role. Now, students must keep this thing in mind that they have to be assertive, but at the same time, they should not turn out to be aggressive. They have to be polite, like I mentioned in the earlier answer as well. They have to be pretty much polite because at the end of the day, it is not a competition. It is just a discussion, and these are the parameters on which you are being judged. Another thing which was very helpful for me and which helped me to emerge as a leader was that I did not pay much attention to the quantity. Rather, I paid very much attention to the quality of my words. I ensured that the points that I'm keeping forth is bringing something new to the table. It is not mere exaggeration of the points that already exist in the discussion. I'm bringing something new. So that was my intent for developing for emerging as a leader, I would say. Second thing is that, again, there's a thin line between being a boss and being a leader.
Right.
So I have observed personally that at many times people try to become boss in the interview. Like they try to cut people out. They try to speak maximum. That is their goal. They believe that if we speak the maximum number of lines, we might get selected, but that is not the case at all. So if you're trying to be a leader, if you are a leader, rather, if I put it that way, you would never criticize somebody else's point. In fact, I think would be very much helpful. What I have observed is that during group discussions, uh, for instance, if I put my point forth, uh, next person might speak on his point, and in the meantime, I would simply just jot down my next point, which is a very incorrect approach. Instead, once I have given my point and once somebody else is speaking, I should pay very much attention on what the other person is saying. I should act like a good listener because listening skills again is something which they are looking for. So yeah, again, let everybody speak. You do not need to just cut everybody out. Rather, act like a group, like a good teammate. Because in the corporate world, you have to be a team. Work in teams and not individual. So yeah, that is how I try to be immersed like a leader and not a boss.
Yeah, very well said, Anisha, that it will be a teamwork. Yeah. So thank you,
Absolutely.
Anisha. I'm sure this will help aspirants to crack their GEPI positively. So moving forward to my next question. So I would like to ask to Dhanraj, like how to express language skills in VAT. How? So can you please tell me your experience?
Yeah, yes, sure, ma'am. So SIBM Bangalore has a very unique way of shortlisting its candidates for the MBA program. It tests the candidates on three different steps: the group exercise, the personal interview, and the written ability test, also known as VAT. So in a VAT, a candidate is given a specific topic on which the candidate has to write his own points in a given time frame. So a candidate who is preparing for the interviews for the B schools, they usually think that the topics for VAT would be asked from the general awareness, like what is happening in the world at that specific time. But trust me, SIBM Bangalore throws very different topics to you during the VAT. For example, I remember me and my batchmates, the topics which we were given, they ranged from, our favorite subject during the school days to the success of ISRO. So you never know which VAT topic is waiting for you.
Right, right.
So for giving a good VAT, what I would suggest is, don't just focus on the general awareness topics. Read the topics which you enjoy reading. For example, I enjoy reading about history and fiction. So while I was preparing for my general awareness things, I made sure that I devote some amount of time to the genres which I enjoy reading. And apart from this, the candidate should avoid making punctuation mistakes, silly grammar mistakes, and I think this should suffice your VAT.
Right, right. So thank you, Dhanraj, for sharing your experience and giving an idea to the aspirants that they should prepare for diverse topics. So yeah, reading surely will give them ideas to the top of mind. So yeah, moving forward to the next question. How did you face personal interview in concurrence with a panel? So can you please give me your experience?
Yes, sure, ma'am. That's a very interesting question.
Yeah.
I think many aspirants would be having the same question.
Right.
So I remember in the last year when I was waiting for my PI in the waiting room, I was a bit tense. Like it is pretty normal for a candidate to be tensed at such situations before such interviews for good B schools. So I remember as soon as my PI started, the panelists made sure that I have a calm and cool, composed mind.
Hmm.
So and the questions which were asked, they range from from various topics, like from my graduation to the current happenings, my favorite hobbies, and etc etc. So what I would suggest is, during such PIs, the students should make sure that they have a friendly conversation with the panelists, and it shouldn't be just a question and answer session with the panelists. You should be driving the interview instead, being a monotonous conversation. um, if you when the question is being asked to you, make sure that you take your own time, think, and then give your answer, because making stories in front of such experienced panelists won't make a great effort to for you. So instead of babbling random things, it should, if you don't know the answer for a specific question, be honest and tell the panelists that you don't know the answer. It won't paint a bad picture of you in front of them.
Very nice.
And
Hmm.
yes, personally, what I would suggest is, be confident during your PI, be well groomed, and always wear a smile on your face. And that should be a great PI experience for you.
I think
Thank
it's
you.
a cherry on the top. Yeah. So yeah, thanks, Dhanraj. You have very well explained the situation. Really helpful. So my next question will be, how did you manage your body language during tough questions with the PI panel?
Sure, ma'am. I'll take up that question.
Okay.
So the tough questions, or rather I would say the supposedly tough questions, which are asked during the interviews, no, these are not just asked to test a student's knowledge, but basically the main motive of these questions is to test how a student reacts to such situations, whether they stay calm or they panic and make a mistake in such a hurry. So let's take an example. For example, say a student is posed with a question based on his undergraduation or a current affairs based question. So even if you're not aware of the question, you could just politely say that I am not very well versed of the topic right now. However, I'll get to it and research upon it later. Or many a times it so happens that you are not very sure of the answer. So you could just say ki, sir, I'm not very well versed. However, to give it a try, I think this is so and so. So this basically shows that you are trying and you are accepting of your shortcomings. So basically, having a very calm composure, accepting your shortcomings is something that sails you through. Now, coming towards the body language part, I would say even if it so happens that you are not able to answer consecutive answers, one after the other, there's nothing to worry about. All that the interviewers are trying to test is how you are maintaining your calm and composure. There is nothing wrong in not knowing everything. All you need to do is stay calm and have a positive outlook no matter what comes to you. So having a calm composure, accepting your shortcomings and being honest in whatever happens is what helped me sail through my PI experience.
Yeah, definitely. Sure, Shavi. Thanks for letting students know how to tackle questions during PI question. Yeah. So my next question will be, what suggestions and tips do you have for the students who are willing to crack GE-PI at SIBM Bengaluru?
All right. So GE-PI-WAT is definitely, I would say, one of the most crucial factors after the SNAP test for any candidate to secure a seat in SIBM Bengaluru. Now, I'll start with the GE group evaluation first. Now, some of the tips I would like to share is number one being, whenever a topic is shared with you, it is very, very important that you analyze the topic, you observe what is expected out of you. There will be a certain time frame given to you before you initiate a discussion. Use the time given thoroughly, make bullet points of the points that you intend to say. And every time it is very beneficial if you find quantifiable data to support your points, because data basically shows how aware you are of that topic. Now, apart from this, it's not just important to give your contribution, but you also need to listen attentively to others as well. Now, that basically shows how attentive, how good of a team player you are when it comes to team building activities. Also, another misconception among many people is that you need to speak many number of times to show how participative you are. But usually what happens is that is not the only factor that counts. What matters more is how qualitative your data is. Even if you speak a few number of times, you need to ensure that you bring up a new point to the table every time you speak. So that is what matters more. And coming to the personal interview round, I would say whenever a question is being put up for you, have a pause to frame and organize your thoughts. Now, this would basically give you a buffer time to organize and to frame your answer in your own mind. So this basically prevents any interruptions when you start answering. Another point would be to stay calm, show your optimism, and keep a smile on your face no matter whatever comes your way. Also, brushing up on your current affairs and knowing what's happening around is very important, because having a brief idea of what's happening around you definitely does give you an advantage in terms of your own self-confidence and attitude towards the whole process. And that does help you boost your performance in all the tests to a great extent. So these are some of the points that have helped me clear my rounds. So that's it.
Thanks, Shavi, for your suggestion. I hope this will help students to clear their GE-PI at SIBM. So yeah, all right, guys. Thank you so much for taking out time with us, and I'm sure your valuable inputs will definitely be of great use for the future aspirants. So
Thank you so much,
so much
ma'am.
for having us, ma'am.
Thank you so much for having us, and all the best for all the future process.
right. All the best for the future aspirants.